Hey guys, we're back. Hey, here we are. Back for another great episode of the Pot Show with me, Mantus. Is it Carnival Cruise? Can someone look that up for me in the studio? Carnival Cruise is doing a new 9-month.
Royal Caribbean just announced its World Cruise of World Cruises. So this is the cruise of all cruises. Let's break it down for you. It's going to stop at 150 destinations. You're going to go to all 7 continents. You're going to go to 65 countries. It's going to take a while to do that, though. It's going to take almost a year. 274 nights. That's about 9 months.
9 months.
Start saving up now if you want to go. It sets sail from Florida in December of 2023.
On the ocean.
Images tonight showing the legend cutting right into the glory.
With other people who want to be on a cruise.
The cruise line apologized for the experience and refunded everyone's money for the washed out trip. And how's this for washed out?
That's fun.
We're now learning 2 passengers from the Diamond Princess cruise ship have died. This as authorities let hundreds disembark, freeing them from quarantine.
They're going to be surfing the coronavirus waves. Can't wait. Actually, I am. So this actually sucks because now I got to wait 9 months for... to find out whether or not how many people died on that cruise or how many people fell overboard.
I kept praying to God, please don't let me die out here. Please don't let something eat me like a shark.
Or got food poisoning.
After a diet on the ship of cold cereal and cucumber and onion sandwiches that they had to wait hours in line for. After the fire, there was no power or plumbing on the ship.
In this culture of instant gratification, I just don't know if I can wait 9 months. Something tragic needs to happen almost immediately, right out of the gate for me to hold my attention on this. A 9-month cruise. Someone needs to fall off the water slide and just crash into this is only for retired people, right? There's no family, no families are doing this unless somebody, I know, a family, this is probably good for those weird Christian homeschoolers. They're just gonna bring their kids on a cruise and then they teach them all about the Bible because they live in a state where they don't give a shit about education. I'm just gonna spitball here and just go Texas.
I opened up Texas 100%.
I mean, this cruise line thing should be an Onion article, right? It should be that. Just sounds. I feel that's something that I would make up if I was trying to create a farcical or satirical cruise option. But we live in this post-farce and post-satire environment where there's nothing that you could say that isn't being already done for real. For example, that Carnival Cruise Line.
Royal Caribbean.
For another example, everything that happens in Texas. Okay, so Facebook wants to change their name because they're worried about their own association with Facebook.
Meta. Starting today, our company is now Meta.
I don't even have to make a joke about that. This is what I'm talking about. There's no satire anymore. What am I supposed to say that's not that headline? That's the headline. This is so hard.
these are bath bombs and that they are a little over 10 ounces apiece, and they come painted and unpainted in all of the various scents that I have, which is like 40 of them.
Wow, and it's heavy. It's like a brick. Yeah, it's so cute.
And they, you can get them painted or unpainted.
This
and
one's
they're painted by hand.
Wow. It's it's sad to think that this beauty is going to dissolve in a tub.
They look really cool doing it. You bathe in the skulls of your enemies.
Oh, I love it. Here, let's give everybody a full
360.
360 of it.
Of the.
Oh, so what goes into making a bath bomb like this?
They're made in a big batch. They're largely a mixture of baking soda and citric acid with a bunch of other small ingredients and fragrance for stabilization. And I add polysorbate 80 so that these do not leave any stains in the color. Doesn't leave any stains in your tub.
Oh, that's great.
You know, folks, I'm sad.
What?
Because it's very difficult to do satire anymore. I mean, look at, I talk about that a little bit with our special guest. Oh, here they come. I talk about that a little bit with our special guest. Talk about that a little bit with our special guest. Here to talk about the death of satire and the birth of, not the birth, but the rebirth and the proliferation of misinformation is our very special guest, all the way from Salem, Massachusetts, via Zoom, Lucien Greaves of the Satanic Temple.
I sort of have this understanding about the Satanic Temple that there's a little bit of a troll involved with it, especially as far as the activism is concerned, right? And there's some sarcasm and satire involved with it, with its kind of proselytization.
This has become more and more difficult for me to talk about because it's so easily misconstrued and misunderstood. And earlier on, I did interviews where I openly said, yeah, we engage in pranksterism and satire and things like that. And immediately the criticism became, well, they're a satire group and they're only pranksters and stuff like that. And I was saying, no, that's not what we're fucking saying. And they would pull these partial quotes, which people have done, my whole 10-year span of being in the Satanic Temple to prove one thing or another.
How difficult is it to engage in kind of some of the satirical, pranksterism now? You know what I mean? Because I think we're really at a point in time where, satire is almost dead.
Absolutely right. No, we're oversaturated with it. Nothing's authentic anymore.
Right.
Everybody does things for trolling purposes and that's it. And it's an internet social media phenomenon. I think largely people just realize the power of just going in and saying offbeat things and starting up Facebook groups that have no substance to them and things like that. And it's not funny anymore. And The Onion did very well printing satire news, and that quickly turned into these kinds of imitation sites that just started writing fake headlines that had no humor value whatsoever. They were just fake fucking stories that they were using as clickbait. And that really kind of took over the internet. And so, like 10 years ago, we thought we could explain, no, this is authentic religious expression on our part. But we also know how a certain segment of the population will react to this, and it's funny. And now it's like, that's way too much for the common clickbait audience to understand. You're one thing or the other, and you can't do something with any element of pranksterism to it without being merely a prankster.
Right.
And that's where it stands. So now I'm far more reticent to say like, oh yeah, I love pranks, I love good satire or whatever, just because I know that how people will put you in one category or the other, and that's it.
Right.
Like I still very much stand by the value of pranksterism as a tactic. I really love what Sacha Baron Cohen did with his last film.
God, yeah.
And he did a lot of pranksterism that showed people, I think, important things, that were going on in the United States in with Trump's political party. But it's kind of bizarre to me how anything that has any type of humor value in it like that, or anything that's shocking, is immediately dismissed as having some kind of value insofar as commentary is concerned. Maybe that's changing a little bit, or maybe that has changed. People were getting their news from Colbert for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't think his network show is as popular as his Comedy Central show, actually, or maybe it was, and Jon Stewart before him.
Even Jon Stewart's new show that's on Apple TV is less a comedy news than it is just like actually just serious commentary. Like it's like he's just on Crossfire by himself. Like he's given up on the comedy and the satire of it all.
Right, yeah, and the British guy,
John Oliver.
John Oliver.
Like I see the writers trying to like make it funny, and it's just, not funny anymore.
Yeah, and sometimes the topics don't call for humor at all.
Right.
It's more like that's what the show is supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
But the issues have become so much more dramatic, I think, over the past, 6 years.
It's a fence, a higher fence, now keeping marchers well back from the White House.
Oh, give me steel, lots of steel under DC skies above. Please fence me in. Keep me safe from the 2/3 of the country I don't love. Please fence me in. Don't leave me here by myself with 10,000 rivals. Without the aid of Fox and friends, there's no survival. I'll only leave to gas some priests and grope a Bible. Please fence me in. Just lock me in. Let me hunker in my bunker that I'm inspecting night and day. If there's Wi-Fi, I'll use Twitter on the shitter, and a tough guy I'll cosplay. I'll go down underground into history like Adolf Sodom and Louis the 16th. Turns out the only pussy left to grab was me. Please fence me in. Just lock me in. Let me hunker in my bunker that I'm inspecting night and day. If there's Wi-Fi, I'll use Twitter on the shitter, and a tough guy I'll cosplay. I'll go down underground into history like Adolf Sodom and Louis the 16th. Turns out the only pussy left to grab was me. Please fence me in. Please fence me in. Please fence me in. Please fence me in.
We have a great country. That's my thoughts.
Even Jon Stewart's not doing a satire anymore.
Aww.
It's just straight news. Jon Stewart does the news, and he just says shit about the news. Like, he just knows it's just, you can't even, Stephen Colbert, if Stephen Colbert can't do the Colbert Report now, that's ridiculous. Like, he would just, like, people, look, here's the thing. My mom thought Stephen Colbert was not kidding. She thought he was a real right-wing talking head, and that was before Facebook. My mom was never on Facebook. That's just what she thought. Because certain people don't understand irony, and those people attack the Capitol.
This is the regular bar of Soap for Red Right Hand, and it contains a whole mess of activated charcoal if you have sensitive or oily skin. And this is our very first shave soap. This one contains tea tree oil. This one doesn't, because tea tree oil, if you have freshly shaved skin, will hurt like hell. But they have a wonderful scent, and this one has bentonite clay for slips so that it gives you an extremely close shave. The testers have all come back and said that this is makes for an incredibly close shave.
Wow.
So these are all hand spattered, hand painted.
Beautiful.
And you can...
Let's let the audience see everything. So for people in the audience who don't know, what is Red Right Hand?
Red Right Hand is a song by Nick Cave.
Okay, so Nick Cave. So we'll play some of it. We'll play Red Right Hand.
And all of them are named after songs, so it's just a matter of name that tune. And we will.
Because we have quite a few metalheads that might not listen to Nick Cave watching our show.
Just learn the ways of Nick Cave.
Take a little walk to the edge of town and go across the track where the viaduct looms like a bird of doom as it shifts and cracks, where secrets lie in the border fires and the humming wires. Yeah, man, you know you're never coming back. Past the square, past the bridge, past the mills, past the stacks. On a gathering storm comes a tall, handsome man in a dusty black coat with a red right hand. Wrap you in his arms, tell you that you've been a good boy. He'll rekindle all the dreams that took you a lifetime to destroy. He'll reach deep into the hole, heal your shrinking soul, but there won't be a single thing that you can do. He's a god, he's a man, he's a ghost, he's a guru. They're whispering his name through this disappearing land, but hidden in his coat is a red right hand. You don't owe no money, get you some. You don't have no car, get you one. You don't have no self-respect, you feel like an insect. Well, don't you worry, buddy, cause here he comes through the ghettos and the barrio and the barry and the slum. His shadow is cast wherever he stands, stacks of green paper in his red right hand. You'll see him in your nightmares, you'll see him in your dreams. what he seems. You'll see him in your head on the TV screen. Hey buddy, I'm warning you to turn it off. He's a ghost, he's a god, he's a man, he's a guru. You're one microscopic cog in his catastrophic plan, designed and directed by his red right hand.
So as far as like outreach is concerned and activism, like how does the Satanic Temple try to do any kind of like messaging pivots in reaction to this? Like we can take a real world example as far as like the Texas heartbeat law legislation is concerned. And now, you know, you guys have come out with this movement wherein like abortion is a right for adherents of the Satanic Temple. Would you say that is an attempt at going into something a little more extreme or less extreme or literal? Or
you know, we got a lot of press after Texas, the ban they put on abortion and the heartbeat bill and SB 8, all that bullshit. The fact of the matter is that we're working on that from the get-go, like at the inception of the Satanic Temple. And that's the thing, another thing people don't understand. Just because we had all these activism goals in mind when we first started the Satanic Temple doesn't mean we don't have a genuine religious attachment to what we're doing. It was just we didn't have a need necessarily to destroy our reputations and be pariahs by openly identifying in the public as Satanists until there was a real public cause for it. You know, we saw there was a real need for alternative religious voices to demand equal access for the things they were giving to religions. That's where it all began. But insofar as like real serious campaigns with a lot of difficult thoughts going into it and a lot of legal strategy having to be employed, those have never been the most popular items for us in the press. And you know, we've already had lawsuits go through the courts trying to defend our rights, our reproductive rights and things like that. Just didn't get much press.
But Texas is a huge deal, and what they've done is a huge deal.
In Texas was a nationwide story that was really like the top story at the time. And it just so happened that at the same time the law went into effect in Texas, essentially banning abortion, it just happened to be the same day that we sent a letter to the FDA demanding access to abortifacient pharmaceuticals to distribute to membership in the name of our bodily autonomy and religious reproductive rights.
Right.
We didn't time it that way. We wouldn't have been able to do that because it went into effect so fast. They voted on it, and then all of a sudden that was the case. So it was just kind of fortuitous timing, and it presented to journalists just a way to have a new angle on the story. So we got a lot of press about it then. It had been really frustrating previously because, you know, it's very easy to make a clickbait headline about us proposing a monument where there's already a Christian monument or something like that, because you can sum it up in a headline. And those are the types of things like journalists really like. If it's more complicated than that, you'll have a really difficult time getting the press coverage. But everybody knew the Texas story, and then to say like Satanists were going to intervene on religious liberty grounds, that turned it into something very clickbait again. Right. But, you know, it must be recognized that we are definitely still in a clickbait world, and it's not a good place to be when you're trying to get people to think more deeply about issues.
How do you hope that this particular lawsuit goes down in Texas? Because it seems to be a challenge on pretty narrow grounds as far as First Amendment rights is concerned.
Well, we're not limited to this. We can, we can press multiple lawsuits on the same thing at the same time. And, the exact shape some of these lawsuits take are unclear until we know exactly who the plaintiff is going to be and who the defendants are. Ultimately, though, I hope, we do see that we have equal treatment in the courts, or at least to the point where, it's figured that it's going to be an infringement on religious liberty precedent to rule against us, to the point that we are able to uphold our own claims of bodily autonomy. But that's a real uphill struggle right now. And we're to the point where we've been treated so disparately in the courts, where there's obviously a prejudice being applied against us by the judges themselves. We just came out of a terrible ruling in Belle Plaine, Minnesota.
Yeah, I just read about that. Yeah.
Yeah, where I mean, we just have to consider. I don't know what I should say about things that are going to be in action, but I feel that the judge's actions are inexcusable insofar as the judge is concerned.
Right.
The judge made assumptions about the Satanic Temple that weren't even in question in the lawsuit itself, that weren't even part of the evidence presented. The judge made the assumption that our military monument that we were trying to put in Belle Plaine was considered religious by us for the fact that it was anti-religious, which made no sense. And she said this on the record. And she also made other assumptions, I think, about profit motive and things like that. Things that just weren't called into question, that there were no evidence for.
Right.
And then just dismissed the case and then issued sanctions against us for pressing it after multiple of the claims we had made had been dismissed. You know, there was just no way to imagine that any other religious group would have been treated this way. And it was totally inappropriate for a judge to treat us this way at all. And, you know, we're trying to get people to recognize that, because at a certain point, I think only public outrage is going to work. You know, like I get really frustrated when people think public outrage is the only thing we can do, where we should all go out on the streets and hold signs and everything. And honestly, you know, I don't like to denigrate protest, but protest has to come with activism. People think that there's protest, that protest is activism. But honestly, when you take to the streets and you don't make any clear demands, you're not pushing for model legislation, you're not bringing petitions directly to specific politicians, you're not saying this is exactly what we want, you're not going to get anything either. You know, there's still this idea that carried over from the 60s that politicians care that people are out on the street and screaming.
That time in the 60s is really past.
To the point also where you have this extreme polarization, to the point that people on one side of the argument are happy with something as long as it pissed off the other side.
Right.
So if they see the other side out on the street getting pissed off, they think they've done a good job, you know? And especially if the other side's not asking for anything in particular, well, you know, they go home the next day and it was a news item then and it's not anymore. You know, nobody's feet are really being held to the fire. So, you know, but I do think, you know, as long as you're not talking or planning total overthrow, you have to acknowledge that we're in the system we're in, you know, and it's a system that is supposed to be self-correcting.